Welcome to Dragon's Voice podcast. I am your host, truly, Reece Deans, and I hope you guys are keeping well and safe as per usual. You know, we've got many more episodes to come, and we've always got this show to keep me sane because I hope you really enjoyed the last few episodes that I had with Kevin Ratcliffe, Lee Badley, etc. So I really hope you've been enjoying them. Make sure you give a like, share, subscribe to the channel. We want to expand this podcast. We want to expand the show really, and hopefully more will come in the future. However, we got to keep going. We got to keep going with the guests, and this time it's on demand. You guys voted in this particular person, and he's always good on Twitter, and that's the best thing about social media. You can get him on Twitter. Former Wales international, Norwich City legend, Hall of Famer, I might add, Huddersfield player, Leicester City, the list goes on. From Bangor, his name is Iwan Roberts. Iwan, how's it going, pal?
It is, you all right?
Yeah, not too bad. You know, I know we had a brief chat about trying to get you on. I mean, the thing is with me, I want to try and keep the podcast, a little bit professional, because I know sometimes my mates always said to me, why don't you just send them a tweet, And I said, well, the thing is because when you send them a tweet, it just sounds a bit unprofessional. Some of the times you'd rather DM them or something, private message, try to keep who's coming on next, who's coming on where. But I'm actually glad to get you on because I follow your podcast with Alice Smith and Danny Garbadon. I follow you on the BBC Radio Cymru and everything you do on the media. And it's absolutely fantastic to have you with me just to talk about your career, especially at international level, and just to talk, generally about football, anything in general.
To be fair, when I saw your tweet, and was it me, Gabs and Big John Hartson?
Yeah.
When you told me that I'd been voted, not the most popular one, but the ones that the subscribers wanted on next, how could I refuse, mate? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
how could I refuse? So you've got me, mate. So ask away, ask whatever you want, and I will try and answer them as honestly as I can.
Well, the one thing I don't want to start off, it's like, I want us always to be fun and everything, right? But you and I got something in common, and that's
beard.
Oh yeah, the beard. I've got my glasses are over there, but because I can see you properly, I don't need them. But
that'll just be a blur. I couldn't even see you.
But the one thing I really want to talk about, and I'm very passionate about these particular charities, is dementia researching and everything. I'm very apart from me doing the podcast, I do a lot of playwrights. I'm a playwright myself. I do a lot of theatre work. And one of the things I always did, my missus pointed it out to me. She said, you're very specific about spreading awareness about dementia and Alzheimer's. I said, because it's such a horrible disease. No one deserves it. And because you're very well known for scoring goals with your headers and everything, I really want to know what brought it on. What was the reason why you wanted to go into dementia research?
Well, about 18 months ago, I was asked to present a documentary for S4C, obviously the Welsh language channel, about the effects of heading a ball and does it bring on early signs of dementia. And I think they'd asked me because, as you just pointed out, centre forward, 6'3", decent in the air, scored a lot of my goals with my head. And a part of the documentary was I live in Norwich, so there was a new study that had come out in the UEA, the University of East Anglia in Norwich, which is only a couple of miles from my house. And we were supposed to go and speak and have an interview with Dr. Michael Gray, who put this study together. So we went up, and it was for effects on TV. It was better if I sat down and did some of these tests that he's sort of invented for them to see if there's early signs of this horrible illness, disease that it's you lose people twice through it. So I sat down, did these tests, and he asked me. He needed, I think, about 40 ex-professional footballers, both ladies and men, to join this study. Would I sort of volunteer? And I went, yeah, of course I will, no problem. And they're simple tests, Chris. I can do them on the tablet, you can do them on a computer at home. You do them every 6 months, and then they compare results and see if there's something there to be aware of. And I just thought, I'm 52 now. I look, and probably the most famous case of an ex-footballer sadly passing away through dementia is Jeff Astle. And Jeff was diagnosed at 55 with early signs of dementia. He died at 59. It's not far off my age. And I just thought of the amount of times I've headed a ball, and it's not just in a game. People see you heading a ball in the game. Every goal kick, every set piece, I'd be one of the main targets because of my height. But it's on a daily basis, the repetition of heading a ball in training. Because I was good in the air, but when I was 13, 14, I wasn't very good. It's something that I had to practice on a daily basis when I first went to Watford. So that's the thought about it. I'm a big believer in prevention is better than cure, if I've said that properly. And I know you can't cure dementia, but you can sort of keep it away. There's things you can do. There's medication you can take that sort of help fight it until maybe later in life. And I want to try and bring awareness to it, because me personally, I do think there's a big part of heading a football and dementia. I think there's a study in Glasgow that came out saying that ex-professional footballers are 3.5 times more likely to die from the illness than the general public. I've got a family, so I want to, if it does eventually happen, I want to put things in place that they are okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course. Because I remember when the news broke out that Bobby Charlton has got dementia, being in his early 80s, and he's lived an incredible life, so fair play to him. But, but then to find out later that his brother, Jack, had it, you do wonder, is what's going on? What is happening, And the one thing I really wanted to know is that because there is an uproar about it, and I'm stuck in the middle, so I want you to help me with this. I want to know from a professional footballer's opinion, and considering that you've actually done the dementia research and everything, because, excuse me, because they're trying to, there's a big debate now saying, can you head to the ball in today's type of football? But considering going back, 50, 60 years ago, there were leather balls. They were a lot more hard in the rain, and because, you try to head to a ball back then, you get a concussion. But in today's football, would you say it's a lot more safer, or does the ball need to be more softer, safer? What's your general?
The balls are lighter, and you mentioned the Bobby and Jack Charlton. Jack was a big, strong centre half. You look at other players that have died. Dave Watson, a former, I think he played for Southampton, he played for England. He was a centre half, strong in the air. We lost Nobby Stiles a few weeks ago through the same illness, which, he was a little combative midfielder, not your typical big centre forward, big centre half. I mean, I told you I lived in Norwich. We lost Duncan Forbes, Scottish international, big commanding central defender who loved heading the ball. So there is a pattern, if you know what I mean. And you're right. Even when I play, you wouldn't play with brand new, or you wouldn't train with brand new balls every day. You'd have balls that you'd been using for 18 months to 2 years. So they weren't great. The balls we played a game with, they were a lot lighter, but still, it hurt if you caught it wrong. And nowadays, you're right. The balls are a lot lighter, but I think by being lighter, they travel quicker through the air. So they land at your forehead quicker, and I don't want heading banning from football. I'd be a hypocrite if I said that, because I earned a living from using my head, basically, with the goals that I scored. Would I like to see the art of heading being used less in training? I think that would be a good idea. Would I like to see youngsters not being allowed to head a ball until a certain age, as they do in America? I think they're banned from 11 years downwards from heading the ball. I think the Scottish FA have introduced that. I think the English FA are thinking about it. I think it would be a good idea, and there's many reasons for that. I think by banning kids from a certain age from heading a ball, then I think you improve their awareness, first touch, passing ability. And you look at maybe examples from abroad and different countries. There's not as much onus on heading the ball, I don't think, in countries like Spain, Italy, Brazil, as there is in this country. So I don't want heading the ball being banned whatsoever. I think it's a big part of the game. It's going to have a big part for years and years to come. I think Frank Lampard said that he think it would be a good idea if heading was reduced in training. Because when I first went to Watford, as I said to you, I weren't strong when I was 15, 16. It wasn't until I went to Watford and I was in the youth team, and there was me and Dean Holdsworth, the former Newport manager, up front. And after every training session, Tom Wally, the youth team manager, he would take the two of us, he'd get the two full-backs and two wingers, just crossing balls into the box. And honestly, 45 minutes, we would just be in there, bang, heading the ball, trying to score. And we loved it. We loved it, just. I wouldn't change a thing about my career. I don't want to blame anybody. That's not what it's about for me. I just want to catch early signs if I have got signs that I've got it. That's all I want. I don't want to play. No one put a gun to my head to sign a contract with the 6 clubs that I played for. I wanted to be a footballer. That was my dream. The reason why I've got involved is maybe a little bit selfish, that if something is going to happen to me in 5, 6, 7 years' time, I'd rather know now by doing these tests than all of a sudden things start creeping up on me.
Yeah. Because well, for me as well, for being a script writer, because I wrote. There was a particular play I'll tell you about, right? And it was about setting in a purgatory, like in a waiting room kind of thing. And one of the characters on there was suffered from dementia. He was an elderly gent, but I wrote in the script that he said he was given so much. It's like, right, you got to spend so much time, and I said that he didn't know where to start because he got the signs of dementia, and because of the, it's all up in the air and it could cause a lot of stress and that. And one of the things, and they've done it in a lot of programs, and I remember one where they said because they caught it early, this particular character can set it out and plan further ahead before it starts rapidly declining, and it's just, and I mean, luckily, God forbid, touch wood, my family, especially my BAMP, who is not, he hasn't got it, but because a lot of elderly people are very forgetful, you think, oh, hang on a minute, but luckily he's just an old fat. But
I look, and there's certain tests that people do for certain cancers at a certain age. And for me, this is similar. When someone's spent his whole life, as Michael Gray has, Dr. Michael Gray, in getting this study together, he's worked tirelessly over many, many years to put these courses together and this study together. He wants to help ex-players like myself. Why wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I be a part of it? And it is an experiment, and it's not just about professional footballers. It's about amateur players. Now, I was in this documentary. I was speaking to a man called Iwan Roberts up in Glenarvan, and he'd lost his dad through it. And his dad had played amateur football for about 40 years, and his dad would have been about the same age as my dad. So about the time when those balls were the leather knitting, and if you caught it wrong, it would absolutely smash your head. So it's not just about ex-professional football. It's about men in football, women in football, of all ages, and hopefully the study that we're doing, that we can have a better idea and a better understanding of this horrible disease.
Let's get on to your career now with all the clubs you played for.
Only 6, mate. Only 6. You make it sound it's about like 26 or something like that.
Oh yeah. But big clubs and all, and especially where they've come from. Especially like, I mean, Leicester. I mean, winning the Premier League years and years down the line. The 5,000 to 1 team on the odds to win the Premier League. God, you got to feel lucky for Leicester City fans whoever put a £5 bet on and just to go, oh yes, please, thank you.
You bet, I tell you.
I know it beats.
And do you know what? I get asked many times what my favourite club was, and it's like us being asked who's your favourite child. I've got 3 children, and I could never ever pick one. Do you know what I mean? I love my time at Leicester. It's a great club. It's a great city. From the minute I signed, I had a good relationship with the fans. I mean, I scored 2 goals on my debut against Wolverhampton, which sort of, as a forward, that's what you want to. You want to score a goal as soon as you can. Really, you don't want to be going 8, 9, 10 games before you start scoring. So I hit it off with them straight away. I was only there for 2.5 years, but I loved every second of it. 2 promotions to the Premier League through the playoffs. Yeah, we got relegated in between. But yeah, Leicester's a fantastic club, and I still look out for their results. I was absolutely chuffed to bits they won the Premier League. So I still go back there now. Obviously, it's at King Power now and not Filbert Street. And the welcome that I get as an ex-professional, honestly, mate, it's magnificent. And that's why Leicester will always be a club that's close to my heart. Even though, and looking back, I made a big mistake in leaving the club. My contract was running out. Martin O'Neill was the manager. He didn't want me to leave. I didn't want to leave. My family was settled there with a good dressing room, good squad. Cut my nose off to spite my face because something happened with the then chairman, Martin George, said something that he shouldn't have before the playoff final in '95 against Crystal Palace, and it left a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest with you. But looking back, and I've always been a big believer, you shouldn't really have any regrets in your career, whatever path you've chosen. But if I have one regret in life and in my footballing career, I think it has to be leaving Leicester when I did, because they went on to have 7, 8 years consecutively in the Premier League, finishing in the top half, League Cup finals. I made a bit of a mistake, but you live and learn. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I really wanted to mention Leicester as well, because I got it on the list of some of the questions I had, and especially with Leicester City, when you got promoted to the Premier League, even though it was one season in the Premiership for you, but what was it like competitively in that Premiership at that time comparing to what it is now? What was it like for you, for Leicester back then?
I mean, we were always up against it, mate, to be honest with you. We were always going to be in a battle, in a fight to stay in the league. And we knew it. We knew it as a squad of players. Brian Little didn't probably strengthen as much as he should have. Whether he had the finances, I don't know. I think he brought 2 or 3 in. We brought Mark Draper in from Notts County, who was a magnificent player. And we got relegated. He went to play for Aston Villa. He was too good to play in the Championship, but looking at the squad, I don't think we were quite up to Premier League level at that time. And I look at, I think the defensive side and the defences we came up with were far stronger and far better than what they are now.
Yeah.
I look at Arsenal's back 4. You had Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Manchester United, Palace, Bruce, players like that. Des Walker was playing. It was hard work. And what did I get? I only played 36 games, or I didn't start the first 2 or 3 games. I scored 9 goals, which it's not great. It wouldn't be bad now, I don't think, if you're getting 9 goals in the Premier League. I think I'd be worth about 40 million quid. But it was hard work, mate. And I look at my career. And I played in the old First Division when I was a young boy at Watford, but only 1 season in the Premier League. It was hard work, and I'm firm and Billy. I'm quite honest. I was a Championship player, if I'm honest with you. I would be confident that I could get you 15, 20 goals a season at that level. I'd have to be in a good side to get you that in the Premier League. So I'm realistic enough, mate, to look back and think, yeah, I was a decent player at Championship level, but it was hard work at Premier League level.
You know what? I really want to mention this particular game where it was in the playoffs, and I think it was the second promotion you got to the Premier League, but it was against Stoke City. And it was around about the time where I know it's when when I did my research, he said you were in danger because you celebrated a goal and the Stoke City fans were going to pitch invasion. Neil Lennon.
Yeah.
No,
That's what, sorry.
I was going to say Neil. It was a Neil Lennon, and it was someone else. This is my list of questions, but it was Neil Lennon. I can't remember. It was someone else. It was where was it? Neil Lennon and Muzzy. Is it? Yeah, that's it.
We played Stoke in the semi-final of the playoffs. We finished sixth, and we put a good run together just to finish in that sixth position. So obviously we played the team that finished third, which was Stoke. Played the first game at Filbert Street. I think we drew 1-1 the first game, and we went to the Victoria Ground. It wasn't the Britannia; it was their old stadium, the Victoria Ground. And we won 1-0. I think Gary Parker scored a penalty. Park scored, and I can't remember. I think it might have been a penalty. I'm not sure. I wasn't playing because I'd broken ribs. So I'd missed the last 6 league games with broken ribs. But I went and I watched some... Oh, not COVID, by the way. I went and watched, sat in the dugout. Of course, when the final whistle's gone, as you come out of the dugout at the Victoria Ground, our fans were behind the goal to the left. So we've all rushed on and we're all in and around our penalty box, celebrating with our fans. All of a sudden, we've turned around. I swear to God, the rest of the pitch, over 3/4 of the pitch, was just full of Stoke fans. And yeah, I probably was scared because they weren't kids. Do you know what I mean? They were men, absolutely after our blood, because we shouldn't have been celebrating on. And there might have been a bit of controversy in the game as well with the penalty. I'm not too sure, but yeah, mate. Honestly, it was a scary moment. And we had a big. All the mounted police came and cordoned off that quarter, that little quarter where our penalty box were. And we had to stay there. We had to stay outside for about half hour, 45 minutes. So the police could get all the Stoke fans to disperse and get them out of the stadium before we eventually got back into the dressing room. I mean, that's probably the only time I've ever been scared on. It weren't like one or two. I'm talking thousands. It's as if the whole 3 other sides of the stand had emptied and they'd all gone to the pitch.
What happens with Neil Lennon and Muzzy Izzard then? Because I was
strip off.
Sorry?
I don't think they got. Yeah, I don't think they got into any trouble. I don't think they got. But I do remember. I think they might have not stripped off, threw shirts and their shorts into the Leicester fans. And I think they were just they were there in just their socks up to their knees and the white sort of slips that you wear under your match shorts.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I think that's because I mean we didn't get into any trouble. They couldn't get past the mounted police, and why would they try? But yeah, I think because obviously we were celebrating so much, and I think Leonard and Neil and Muzzy had thrown their shirts and shorts as sort of souvenirs to the Leicester fans behind that goal. And they're thinking, we'll only be a couple of minutes, we'll be off in the change room. They were there for about half an hour just in their slips.
I could just see Neil now going, like that.
Hey, you know what Stoke's like on a Tuesday night?
Yeah. yeah.
Well, luckily, this was May time because it was the end of the season, I suppose. So it was about 6 degrees then in Stoke.
Oh man, just going on to Watford now. Just going on to where it all started for you. But you've probably been asked about your career because you were young. You know, you started out at Watford. You know, but I really wanted to know about Malcolm Allen and Wally as well, because those two were Welsh-speaking people from Wales. And did they help you a lot in terms of getting comfortable? And also, did they speak Welsh to you during training and everything?
They were the reason why I joined Watford, really, Chris, to be honest with you. I'd known Malcolm since I was about 15, 16, because we played against each other in the Carnarvon District Youth League in Gwynedd. He was playing for Llanberis, the best team in the league. I was playing for Harlech. Me and my brother were playing at centre-half. So I played against Malcolm on a few occasions. So I knew Malcolm, and I knew I'd watched the early parts of his career. I knew he'd gone to Watford, and I was playing for the Welsh youth team, and their manager was Wyn Owen, I think his name was, and he was from Carnarvon, and he knew Tom Wally really well. So he rang Tom up and said, listen, I've got a centre forward, he's a big lad, he's Watford's type of player. I think you should have a look at him. I've been to Leeds for a trial, I've been to Wolves for a month, I've been to Manchester United and played 2 games for them, and they'd offered me a 2-year apprenticeship and a year's professional contract. But as soon as I went down to Watford, Tom was a Welsh speaker, Malcolm was a Welsh speaker, and they made it ever so easy for me to settle. And Tom would speak to me in Welsh when we were training. He loved it because none of the others would understand what we were talking about. And me and Malcolm, when we played, I don't think we played too many first team games together, but we played quite a lot of reserve teams because you had a reserve league back then. And I think that's the best thing that as a player, you can, as a young player, because you're playing against experienced pros and this and that. But me and Malcolm, we speak Welsh I can remember a few years ago, and me and Malcolm were working at a game together, and Martin Keown was there, and we played against Martin when he was in Arsenal's reserves, because he's sort of similar age to me and Mally, and he came up to us and he was talking to us and he was like, I hated playing against you two, because you two kept on talking that Welsh language, didn't you? And it was good, mate. And that's we were Welsh speakers. We spoke Welsh at home to our parents. So why would we speak? It was probably easier for us to speak Welsh than it was English. Although you wouldn't be able to tell that now the way Malcolm Allen speaks English, like a proper Cockney geezer.
Yeah. No, it's a fair play to Malcolm Allen. It's like I'm having plans with him to get on the podcast, but because of his schedule, and fair play, his schedule is just on point. But he did say you would one day come on. But the passion he gives on S4C, the comedy, so, on point, very loud, very descriptive, articulate when it comes to his Welsh and everything. And because I do a lot of ball boy work with Barrytown Football Club, and because of the COVID thing, I remember they did the Newtown and Connors Quay game live television here, and you could, even with crowds and everything, you could just hear Malcolm in the background just giving his play-by-play.
I tell you what, if you get a chance, listen back or watch the highlights of the Wales-Belgium game in the Euros, and it's either Hal's goal or Big Sam's goal. I'm not too sure. And I think it's I think it's 5 Lives commentary, and they obviously the goal's been scored. All you can hear is Malcolm screaming in the background. He's a passionate Welshman. He's a Welshman through and through. He was a great teammate, and people don't realise he was a top finisher, Chris. Honestly, mate, I've played with some good forwards. I've trained with some good forwards. He was as cool and calm and collected in front of goal as some of the best ones I've played and trained with. Honestly, and his career was cut short through a really bad knee injury. He'd have gone on. I think if you look at I think he's got 15 caps for Wales and 3 goals, and not all those caps he'd started. He'd come off the bench. Had he not got injured, he'd have gone on to been a fantastic player. I tell you. I mean, he was good. He was a very good player anyway. But yeah, he'd have had a great career. He really, really would have had I mean, so cool in front of goal. One of the best finishers I've ever seen.
Yeah. The one thing I really want to talk to you about is Graham Taylor, and I always call my little sister. She's in her teens, starting year 7, and even she knows Graham Taylor. She keeps going. She went, "Do I not like that?" and everything, and I'm thinking, how do you know that? It's just because it's one of those things that only people from maybe the 80s, 90s, early 2000s would probably remember. But what was Graham Taylor like? Because I know he was only there for that one season when you started out in the senior. But what was he like as a person and as a manager?
For me at the time, he was the best manager I could have wished for. A gentleman, had a lovely nature about him. I wouldn't say he was soft. I think that'd be wrong. But he was a nice man. But, and there's always a but, he had a side to him that you did not want to see. he scared the life out of players. And I'm talking about experienced lads, you know, Kenny Jackett, John Barnes, Luther Blissett, Tony Cohen, John McClellan. We were all shit scared of him. We did not want to cross Graham Taylor. He gave me my debut when I was 18, playing Manchester United at Vicarage Road. And those were the days where you could only have 2 subs, I think. And it was 0-0 at half-time. He wasn't happy about 1 or 2 things, so he changed it at half-time. He put me on, took Warren Sterling off, and I scored the winner. We won 1-0. And for the Liverpool fan, I didn't get any better, do you know what I mean? Scoring the winner against Manchester United. So I've got so much to thank Graham Taylor for. You know, always used to ask, you know, when I started working for the BBC, I'd bump into him at different grounds. He was working for 5 Live. He would always ask how my parents were. He was a great man, absolute great man. And I can't thank him enough for the opportunity that he gave me when I was a young boy. There was one story, and I thought I was going to get a sack. It was after my debut against Ipswich. Sorry, my first goal was against Man U. My debut was against Ipswich in my first season, and I think I was 17, 18. Anyway, we played Ipswich, and about 6 of the YTS boys, we'd arranged to go out for a meal on Saturday night in St Albans. Not drinking, just going out for something to eat. But the mistake I did, I'd played on the Saturday. It was bank holiday in April time, so we had a game on the Monday as well. We were playing Arsenal at Highbury on the Monday. Of course, the rules are 40 hours before a game, you're not allowed in licensed premises, which means restaurants as well, really. So we've met up in St Albans. There was me, Tim Sherwood, a couple of the other boys, and because we were a bit early to the restaurant, the table wasn't ready. So we've gone to the pub next door, and we've already had a Coke. We weren't drinking alcohol, but we weren't supposed to be there. And little did we know that there was someone in that pub that was one of Tom Wally's best mates. So he was straight on the phone to Tom and said, "Some of your boys are in the pub." Of course, and we were in training on the Sunday. And we didn't know anything about it until the Sunday. My mate Steve Thorne, who I lived with in Diggs, Cockney lad, ginger-haired Cockney lad, he came. I think he was out with us, and he came running up to me and said, "Robbo, Tom knows everything. Tom knows everything." I went, "What do you mean Tom knows everything?" He knows who knows who was out, where we were, what we were drinking. I'm like, fucking hell. Because I knew Tom would go and tell Graham Taylor. Anyway, nothing was said. And Graham Taylor called a meeting in the home dressing room at Vicarage Road because we were training at the ground. And he started off in front of everybody, the senior pros, kids, everybody. All cool, all calm, all collected. He went, "Right, I want to know what fucking 6 were out last night." And he looked at Tim Sherwood, he went, "Fucking no, you were out, just for starters." So we've all had to put our hands in it. Oh my God, mate. I absolutely shit myself. I thought, right, that's it. I've played one game, the career's over. Because they could have sacked us if they wanted to. It was a sackable offence. Not that we were drinking, we shouldn't have been in a pub 40 hours before the game. And I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson there and then. I would have started at Highbury, but because of what had happened, he dropped me. He started Malcolm. I was on the bench. I think we might have won the game. Malcolm scored the winner, and it was the hardest but the most valuable lesson I learned in my footballing career. I never made the same mistake again.
Was you disappointed that when he left? Did you feel like you wanted more of him because?
Yeah. And he'd been there a long time. You know, he'd been there when they were in League 4, or Division 4 in the old days. So he'd brought them from Division 4 to 3 to 2 to the Division 1. And they'd finished second behind Liverpool. They got to an FA Cup final. Maybe he'd taken the club as far as but I was gutted. And the club was, you know, the fans, the people who worked at the club, the players, because he was such a great man. And we could understand it, you know, the lure of Aston Villa, big club, you know, European Cup winners, Champions League, what it is now, back in 81. We could understand it. And I think the news broke the day we were meant to go to China on an end of season tour for 2 weeks to play in a cup out there. And the trip was going to be cancelled because we hadn't got a manager to take us. And in the end, Elton John stepped in with his manager, John Reid, and he was like, right, this trip isn't being cancelled. The club spent a lot of money. I'll take it. I'll be your manager. So yeah, he took us to China. I think we played 3 games. I think we won the tournament, and because I'm talking late 80s. So China then isn't what it is now. Do you know what I mean? And I think I lost about 1.5 stone because I didn't eat anything. I packed my suitcase with Twixes, with Mars bars, all the crap that you shouldn't eat because I don't like Chinese food anyway, so I wouldn't eat it then. And before the last game, he'd said, right, boys, we need to win this game to win the tournament. I think we played the China national team in our last game, and if we beat them, we'd win the tournament. He said, if you win today, I will treat you. What I'll do, I'll import the best steaks that America's got. I'll import them from America because obviously you're not that far from America if you go the other way around, sort of thing. And we can all have a good proper slap up meal tonight. We won the tournament. Honestly, these steaks, they were absolutely massive and they were magnificent. And I swear to God, because me and Malcolm from North Wales, I was running with Malcolm at the time. We hadn't really eaten anything, and what I'd done, as the waiters are putting the steaks down, Malcolm's done the fatal thing. He's got up and gone to the toilet, and I knew Malcolm loved his salt. You see, so what I did, I undid the top on the salt, put it down, because I knew first thing you do when you get back is a bit of salt on the steak. So as he's lifted the salt up, he's poured it. The top's gone off. The whole salt in the pot is emptied on his steak. He went absolutely. He was punching me, and all the lads are cracking up. He's got this mountain of salt on his steak. I actually do think I ruined the steak.
Talk about Saturday nights all right for fighting, innit?
The good old days, this.
That's amazing. Oh, do you know what? I'm gonna hold to that. If I ever do get him on, I'm definitely gonna say, how was that? Take it with a pinch of salt, Malcolm.
Ask him as well what my bad habit was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's not fine, is it?
It's not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But I had a really bad habit. Well, for a professional athlete, it was a really bad habit.
Fair play. That was.
By the way.
What's that?
It's nothing to do with drugs.
Oh no, no, fair play. Oh man. Going on to Wales for a moment. Get a call up, 1989. Call up to go play for Terry Yorath Wales against Israel. I think it was for you. Who gave you the call? How did you feel? And who was in the squad in '89?
Graham Taylor told me. He called me to his office at Stanmore where our training ground was, and he said, "Listen, big man, I've just had a call off Eddie Pomey, our secretary. The Welsh FA have been on to him, and you've been called into the squad to travel to Israel." And I was like, I was absolutely gone because I'd done well. I'd done well in the youth team. I'd scored a lot of goals in the youth team. I played reserve team football because of those goals before I should have, really. Honestly, it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true. I absolutely shit myself. Honestly, it was people like Neville Southall, Dean Saunders, Kenny Jackett, who I knew at Watford, Robbie James, Big Nev,
Ian Rush.
Mark Hughes. I don't think Rushy was there. I think that's maybe why I'd been called in, sort of thing. But I'd seen these. I'd watched these lads on Match of the Day. Do you know what I mean? I was in awe of them. Rushy might have been there. I'm not sure actually, because I think Rushy might have been there. And I remember we flew to Israel from Heathrow. So obviously I've met the squad and never said a word. You just, as a young boy, you just got your head down and didn't try and be too big time Charlie, which I would never have been anyway. I've got onto the plane and it was one of these 2 seats on the left aisle, 2 seats on the right aisle, and I've sat in the seat right next to the aisle. I was like, right, who am I going to be sat next with? And players keep coming one after each other. Nev, Rats, Robbie James, and then like Clayton Blackmore was there. I said Mark Hughes has turned the corner, and he's just looked at me. I'm sitting there. Mark Hughes, I'm sitting next to Mark Hughes for 5 hours. So I'm going to ask him so many questions. So he sat there, and he was playing for Barcelona. I think he was at Barcelona Bayern Munich at the time. And he sat there. And honestly, I was so nervous, mate. So I went, what was it like in Barcelona? He was like, all right. I said, are you enjoying Bayern Munich? He went, yeah, it's all right. I said, just like 2-word answers. So I'm like, I don't think he really wants to talk. So I never said anything else for 4.5 hours. I just sat in my seat and said nothing. But I think that's what Sparky was like. Sparky was good mates with Mark Bowen, Glyn Hodges, Clayton Blackmore for obvious reasons. So, and I was a new lad sort of thing. I was a young boy. He didn't really want to be spending time talking to me sort of thing. And funnily enough, towards the end of my Sparky gave me more Welsh caps than any other manager, to be fair. So I've got a lot to be thankful of. But at that time, he didn't want to be talking to a ginger-haired young Welsh international, did
he? No, probably not. And it's but fair play to him for mentioning, because you played under 4 managers for Wales. A lot of famous games, especially against Argentina, Brazil, Portugal, which I'll mention Brazil in a minute. But just mention Mark Hughes for a minute. What was he like as a player, and what was the difference, apart from the obvious being manager and a player, but what did he offer as a manager?
First of all, he was a magnificent player. We all know that. We all know he's a goals that he scored, strength, first touch, awareness, just an absolutely top professional footballer. As a coach, he was good technically. You know, he had a good team with him, to be fair. He had Mark Bowen, he had Eddie Nizvicki, but Eddie Harrison, who was his youth team manager at Manchester United, who sort of was the coach for the team in '92, who brought all those stars through. So he had a good team. I think the most impressive thing for me about Mark was his team talks. And he wasn't a real ranter and raver. And I can't remember where we were, but I think it was a game where we had to win. It was such an important game, and it was in Eastern Europe somewhere, but I can't remember where. We were in the dressing room before the game, and he's just come out with this like team talk and about being Welsh and what it means to be Welsh. He brought our families into it, and he just kept a calm, quiet voice throughout the whole team talk. By the time he finished, we wanted to fight the world. Honestly, it was inspiring, and you know whether he got that from someone like Sparky, from someone like Fergie, I don't know. But that's one thing that I will never forget with Mark Hughes. That team talk, motivation. You know, people say, "Oh," and I think players should motivate themselves. Really, managers shouldn't really have to motivate professional footballers. But that day, Jesus, did he motivate us with the team talks that he gave. And we had some big characters in that dressing room, like Chris Coleman, Gary Speed, bless him, Nathan Blake, John Hartson. We had some big players. And we were all, mate, honestly, we were like, come on, let's get this done, let's get this game won before we went out. It was inspiring team talk.
Was you playing in the game where John Toshak first came to Wales, which was Norway 3-1?
No, I wasn't.
No,
we lost 2-0, didn't we, at Indian Park?
I think it was 3-1.
I mean, and there was. I wasn't involved for one reason or another. But obviously, he brought the brunt of the Welsh FA letting Terry Yorath go, really, because Terry was a massive favourite with the fans. He nearly got us to a major tournament when we missed out. We're losing with that Romania game at the old Indian Park, the old Arms Park, and they wouldn't give him a new contract for whatever reason. And you know, John took over. It wasn't a great performance. It was a bad defeat, and he bore the brunt of that. Hence why he left. He didn't realise how bad it was going to be, and hence he walked away. So no, I wasn't involved. I wasn't. I think I watched the game on telly. I can't remember where I would have been at Leicester at the time. No, but I didn't. I wasn't involved.
No, fair enough. No, that's fair enough because your career, it's a 1989 first cap for Wales, then it jumped to 92, then it jumped to 94, then to 2000. So you're very lucky not to be managed by Bobby Gould. I'll tell you that.
I was with Gouldy.
Oh, was you? What you was?
Gouldy. I got a few caps with Gouldy. I was in the squad when Gouldy took us up to the prison, sort of as a prison sort of not Monmouthshire, but up that way sort of thing. And we trained there on a few occasions. I mean, Gouldy was Bobby. I like Bobby. I'm not sure how many caps he gave me. I mean, I tell a story, and it's a true story, that I remember when I was playing for Wolves. I think it was the second game of the season, and we were playing Bradford at Molineux. And Jonathan, his son, was playing in goal for Bradford. And in the first 10 minutes, the ball's been played from the left-hand side into their 6-yard box. And I've slid in, because that's the only way I could get anything onto the ball. And Jonathan's come sliding out to get the ball, and we've collided. And my studs has caught him here, and I've opened his throat up all the way down there. I mean, I think he was really lucky, do you know what I mean? Because I didn't realise what I'd done to start with. So I've gone up to see if he was all right. Honestly, the gash was like that all the way down there. Honestly, he's taken off. And even now, when I've seen him over the years, he's got a massive scar all the way down there. It was totally unintentional. I just had eyes on the ball. I thought I had a great chance of scoring. He's come out head first, and it was just an innocent clash. I don't think from that point on, Bobby picked me too many times for the national team. I'm not saying that was the reason, but something in the back of my mind sort of, I do think he held that against me. And as I say, it was a complete accident. It was a complete freak accident.
Yeah, no, and in football, anything can happen, especially with legs flying, and stud.
Yeah, I lost my front teeth. I'll tell you a story about losing my front teeth. I was playing for Watford. We had a friendly in Exeter. I was 18 years of age. There was a lad playing for Exeter who I played with for the Welsh under-18s professional team. A lad called Dan Rowbottom. We'd roomed together. He was a winger. And he was picking me up from a set piece. I think it was a free kick. So he was picking me up for some reason. Anyway, we've both gone up for this ball in there. He's just got bang, and he's caught me straight, mate. Now, he didn't knock them out, but I mean, they were a mess. And I knew they were a mess. And the physio's come on, he's had a look, he's gone up. Oh, you've only cut your gum, you've only cut your lip, Robbie, you're all right. But I knew there was something not right. So I've carried on and played the full game, got in after, and I've gone. The physio was called Billy Hales for Watford. I went, Billy, something's not right, mate. Can you get the club doctor to come in and have a look? So the Exeter's club doctor's come in. He said, oh yeah, you took a bad smash there. You need to go to the dentist first thing tomorrow. So I've gone to the dentist the next day. Didn't sleep a wink at night. I woke up the next morning because we stayed at Exeter University. The pillow was covered in blood. Gone to the dentist. He's had a look. He's gone. I mean, they're not great. They're in a bad state. I can save them, or they can be saved, but it's going to be months of hard work and treatment. And I was like, right, I'm centre forward, 6'3". I'm going to get more smacks in the face. Going to get more smacks around my mouth, teeth. I went, I'll just take them out. So he whipped them out, and hence I've never had my 3 front teeth. So accidents happen. It's part and parcel of the game.
With your front teeth now, is it dentures or are they screwed in or what?
Dentures.
Dentures, are they? Oh. Wait a minute, shall we go? Because it's the voice there. So let's have a look again. Oh, flipping heck. If you haven't seen that, say.
I've had them since I was 18, so I'm used to them now. I'm used to it. And people say, oh, why don't you get implants? Because the smack I got was that bad. And they'd fractured in the gum. The dentist had to sort of cut my gum open and get the little bits of teeth that were still left in there. So my gums are all over the shop, really. So I don't know if I would be possibly a bridge. But I think it implants it out of the question for me.
Right. Going back onto Wales then, because you played for a lot of games, a lot of big matches and all, especially one against Brazil. Not the best games because of the result, but it's an experience for you.
Great experience. Millennium Stadium, I think it was the first time the roof had been closed for a football game. We lost 3-0, but you're talking about world champions. I think in two years after we played them, they won the World Cup in Korea and Japan, I think. And they were... Ronaldo didn't play, but all the other big hitters were there, do you know what I mean? And it was a fantastic experience. I can remember we've gone out to warm up on the Millennium pitch. They didn't even come out to warm up. Because in the dressing rooms in the Millennium, you've got a big indoor area where you can have a warm-up if you want. I think it was that cold that they decided we're doing our warm-up in here. But they were, and I think the man of the match was Roger Freestone. I think I've got a feeling that might have been Roger's first cap, and he was outstanding on the day. But yeah, it was such a great experience. The only bad thing about that night is I never managed to get a Brazilian shirt, which I'd always wanted from a young kid from when I'd seen them in the '82 World Cup. I was like, right, I always wanted to play against Brazil. I always wanted to get that famous yellow shirt. But sadly, I tried to get Silvinho, the lad who used to play for Arsenal.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Silvinho. There was a left back who was playing for Arsenal, who was playing for Brazil. And I'd played against him a few weeks before in a friendly for Norwich. So he sort of remembered me. And as soon as the final whistle has gone, I've made a beeline for him. And I swap shirts. He went, it's my first cap. So I want to keep my cap. And I could understand, really, it's his first time he played, so he wanted to keep the shirt. By the time I've gone for someone else, either the lads had got them or the Brazilian boys had gone into the dressing room. So I missed out on the Brazil shirt.
Oh, mate, I feel your pain.
That's it.
Oh, mate. But, you know, with that, though, with the squads that you've been with through your Wales career, there's some big characters there. I mean, you had Dean Saunders, you had Big John Hartson, you had Big Neville Southall, and I mean, Gary Speed was a character himself, you know. But I want to know, who was the biggest character of them all during your time? And have you got any funny stories to tell during your time at Wales?
I mean, Dean Saunders was probably the funniest, the joker of the pack. Always had stories to tell, and he'd keep you entertained for hours and hours and hours. I remember going on a mid-season break to La Manga, with the Welsh squad, not to play, but just to train as a squad and one thing or another, have a few nights out. And we landed in Alicante, and then we had about a 3-hour bus journey from Alicante Airport to La Manga. And honestly, that 3 hours went like 3 minutes because we were all sat towards the back of the coach. And Dino was just like one funny story after another. He was like, because he's great at impressions. He can do Brian Clough, he can do Big Ron. You name someone, and Dino will try his best to impersonate him. Honestly, he was hysterical, absolutely hysterical. I mean, Big John's a massive character, you know, big character. Nev was brilliant with me when I first got in the squad. Nev looked after the young lads because dressing room's a ruthless place, Reece, do you know what I mean? And you can sink or swim. If you get a bit of stick off some of the senior pros, it can ruin you, do you know what I mean? But you've got to be strong enough to take that. Big Nev was good as gold. Big Nev was brilliant. He sort of took you to one side and listen, don't let them get to you. They're only testing your character, see what you like. They don't mean it. Everybody's gone through it. Nev was brilliant with me. I've got a lot of time for Nev.
You know what? I've heard a lot of stories about Big Neville Southall, whether or not he was at Everton, Bury, or Wales and everything. And apparently, he strongly dislikes bullying, which I'm not surprised at all. But I've heard some stories that you know, there have been players, you know, trying to gang up on one or something, and then Neville will just come in, go grab him, and just be like, you better back off and everything, you know.
I played in a charity match in Lowestoft in Suffolk. Obviously, I live down there. I can't remember what charity it was, But Big Nev was playing for us as well. And obviously, Nev's put a bit of weight on since he finished playing. And as we're walking out, there's this father and son. And it was only a young boy. And he's gone to his dad as Nev's walked past. He went, "Who's that?" Because obviously Nev was a little bit overweight. And his dad went, "Listen, son, at the time, he was the best goalkeeper in the world. A few years ago, he was the best goalkeeper on the planet." And he was right. Nev was unbelievable. We do a shooting practice against Nev after the training session. He wouldn't use his hands. He would dive, he would head the balls away, he'd get his shoulders onto him, he'd get any part of his body apart from his arms and hands, and he'd keep them up. Maybe that's because we were shit at finishing, I don't know. But honestly, that's how good Nev was.
Oh, do you know what? I'll tell you a quick story about Big Nev. I've met him twice, and I'd love to have him on the podcast. I love it, absolutely. It would probably go for hours on end. But I remember the once, it was at a Comic-Con, and it was Cardiff's, one of Cardiff's first ones, and they brought in all these football legends, you know, John Arton, Terry Yorath, Leighton James, Nev was there, Alan Curtis. But I remember, you know, when it comes to Comic-Cons and that, you're not allowed to go behind the tables, not allowed to sit with them and everything, right? And I remember Neville Southall was on his own, so I was with a friend of mine, and I went over and said, they got the autograph and everything, and he was talking to me. He went, "Take a seat." And someone said, "You're not allowed to sit there." And he went, "He can sit wherever he fucking likes." And I was amazed, fair play to him. And we sat there for an hour. And my friend was just standing there, oblivious to who he was. And I'm just looking at it thinking, you're a god. And I'll be honest, you said you were Liverpool, I'm Everton. So
who knows here?
Yeah, that's my dad, that is. And I remember, yeah. So it was just looking at one of my dad's heroes, and that's why I was so glad that I got Kevin Ratcliffe. You know, yeah. It brought a tear to my dad's eye having Kevin Ratcliffe, because he thought,
why don't you ask Rats if he can get hold of Nev, see if he'll come on?
Yeah, well, I've asked him, but the problem is, I asked him when I first had Rats on the first time. He said he would only do it if you talk politics. If you mention politics.
Yeah. He's big into politics.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I support him what he stands for and everything. Don't get me wrong, but when it's like
politics, it's hard.
Yeah.
Politics is hard.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, I have to go in 5 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, no worries. No problem at all.
I can come on again. Yeah,
no worries. Then, well, it's going to be a part one anyway. I knew it was going to be a part two anyway. But that's a final question for you then is, how did the Norwich City come about then for you?
People think, because I was there for 7 years, and I did enjoy my time there, I've got to say. It's a good club. It's a well-run football club. It's a lovely city. It's out the way. I'd signed for Wolves. I'd signed a 3-year contract at Wolves. But something happened that season. We finished third. We didn't get promoted. So Jack Haywood he got the arse a little bit. The Wolves owner, because he put millions into building the squad. Mark McGee was the manager, and he told Mark McGee, right, I ain't giving you no more money. If you want new players for next season, you're gonna have to sell to finance it yourself. So fair enough. And Norwich made an offer for myself. Mike Walker was the manager. Mark McGee pulled me into the office and said, "Listen, big man, Norwich put an offer in. The club's accepted it." I didn't really want to leave. I enjoyed my time at Wolves. It was the closest club to my mum and dad's in North Wales, so they could come every home game, which was always important to me. But once they'd accepted it, he was basically telling me that I didn't really have a future at the club. So I travelled down to Norfolk, didn't realise how far it was, looked around the training facilities, which were brilliant, looked around Carrow Road, I played there a few times, and I thought, you know what, I quite fancy this. I do quite fancy this. So I said to, that was on a Friday, I said to Mike Walker, "Listen, can I have the weekend to think about it?" He went, "Yeah, of course you can." So I went back to the Midlands. And I'm like, do I want to root the family again? Because we'd only just moved into a house in Broseley in Shropshire. And I said, do I want to upheave and everybody and go down to North? I'm not sure. And I can remember driving down, and I was about 20 minutes away from Norwich in a place called Snetterton, and I pulled into a lay-by, and I sat there for 10, 15 minutes thinking, I'm excited. I'm going to turn the car, go back to Wolves and fight for the place. But something sort of told me that you're 15 minutes away. They've been good to you. You like Mike Walker, and I do. I've got a lot of respect for Mike, who's a Welshman. So I travelled down, signed on the dotted line, and was there for the next 7 years. And the first thing I said is, when I signed, I want to try and get the club back into the Premier League. That was my main goal, my main ambition, get Norwich back into the big time. Took me 7 years, but in my last season, we managed to do it. And I think, and I've said this many, many times, the main reason why we did it is because we signed Darren Huckabee. He was absolutely head and shoulders the best player in that league. He was the X factor for us. Without him, we might have finished in the top 6, but he was the difference between us being a playoff team and winning the league.
Well then, Ewan, I know you're a very busy guy, so you have to make a move in a moment, but I would love for you to come back. I've got so much more questions for you.
I really enjoyed it, mate. I love talking football.
Yeah.
I love talking.
We'll go for a second part, and that's a promise here, guys. We'll
Yeah. Come on.
So, guys, don't worry. A part 2 will be coming soon. Then me and Ewan will arrange some time in the future for you guys, because we got so much more questions to go. And normally I always conclude a question of how do you look back on your career to conclude the podcast, but I'll probably leave that for part 2 so that following. So thank you, Iwan Roberts, for coming on. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
No worries.
Speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
So, guys, that was Iwan Roberts for the Dragon's Voice podcast, and I hope you really enjoyed it as much as I have. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Always just support us in so much, and thank you so much for following and staying committed to the Dragon's Voice podcast. It really means a lot. So, guys, I've been your host, Julie Rees-Steens. That was Iwan Roberts, part 1, but part 2 will be coming soon.